The rain fell hard on the broken streets of Old Seoul. The buildings were just shells now, empty, dead. 37 years of alien rule had turned Earth's great cities into graveyards of concrete and rust. Wu Daeho walked through the ruins with careful steps. His boots made no sound on the wet ground. Behind him, 3 others followed in silence. They were scavengers, survivors, the last free humans on a planet that belonged to monsters. The Valorans had come from the stars when Daeho was just a boy. He still remembered that day. The sky turned red. Ships larger than mountains blocked out the sun. Then the killing began. Millions died in the first week. Billions followed in the years after. Those who lived became slaves. The aliens were tall creatures with silver skin and eyes like black glass. They walked like they owned everything. Because they did. They took Earth's water, its metals, its people. Human beings worked in mines until they died. They built machines for their masters until their hands bled. The Valorans did not see humans as people. To them, humans were just animals that could follow orders. Daeho stopped at a broken wall and raised his fist, the signal to halt. His team froze. Park Hana moved to his side without a sound. She was his second in command, a woman with short black hair and scars on her face from battles she never talked about. She carried enough explosives in her pack to bring down a building. She had done it before. "What do you see?" she whispered. Daeho pointed ahead. Through the rain, a Valoran patrol moved across the street. 3 soldiers in black armor. They carried plasma rifles that could turn a human into ash with one shot. The team waited. The patrol passed. They did not look into the shadows where the humans hid. Why would they? Humans were weak. Humans were broken. Humans were no threat at all. That was what the Valorans believed. Daeho planned to prove them wrong. When the patrol was gone, the team moved again. They were heading toward the old border zone, the place where North and South Korea had once faced each other with weapons and fear. Now it was just a wasteland. The Valorans had burned it flat in the early days of the invasion. But Dr. Yoon Tai-soo believed something was hidden there, something important. Tai-soo was an old man with white hair and glasses that he had fixed with tape many times. He was an archaeologist, a man who studied the past. Most people thought he was crazy. He talked about ancient civilizations and secrets buried under the earth. He said humans were not alone in their history. He said something had been watching over them for thousands of years. Daeho did not know if he believed any of it, but Tai-soo had been right before. He had found old bunkers with weapons. He had discovered underground tunnels that helped the resistance move unseen. So when Tai-soo said there was something under the border zone, Daeho listened. The team reached the dig site as the sun began to set behind the gray clouds. It was a hole in the ground, a deep one. Tai-soo's workers had been digging for months in secret. Dr. Kim Sora waited for them at the entrance. She was young, maybe 25, with intelligent eyes and hands that were always moving. She studied languages, all kinds of languages, even ones that humans had forgotten long ago. "You need to see this," she said. Her voice was shaking. "You need to see this right now." They climbed down into the hole. The walls changed as they went deeper. First dirt, then rock, then something else. Something smooth and black that was not natural. It felt warm under Daeho's fingers. "This material," Tai-soo said as they walked, "it is not from Earth. I have tested it. It is older than human civilization, older than the pyramids, older than anything we have ever found." "How old?" Hana asked. 12,000 years, maybe more." They reached the bottom. A chamber opened before them. It was huge. The ceiling was so high that their lights could not reach it. And in the center of the chamber stood something that made Daeho's heart stop. It was a machine. A giant machine in the shape of a man. It stood 40 meters tall. Its body was made of the same black material as the walls. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that seemed to move when Deho looked at them. The machine's eyes were closed. Its arms hung at its sides. It looked like it was sleeping. "What is this?" Deho whispered. "I do not know," Taisu said. "But I know one thing. The Valorans are afraid of it." "How do you know that?" "Because they have forbidden all research into Earth's ancient history. They have killed anyone who dug too deep into the past. They burned libraries. They destroyed museums. They did not want us to find this." Sora stepped forward. She was looking at the symbols on the machine's chest. "These markings, they are not random. They are a language. And I think they are reacting to us." She reached out her hand. "Wait," Deho said, but it was too late. Sora's palm touched the machine's surface. Light exploded through the chamber. The symbols began to glow. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the machine's eyes opened. 2 points of golden light looked down at them. Old light, ancient light, light that had waited 12,000 years for this moment. A voice filled the chamber. It was deep and calm and spoke in perfect Korean. "Children of Earth, I have been waiting for you." Above them, in orbit around the planet, Valoran sensors detected an energy signature that had not existed for millennia. Alarms began to sound. Ships began to move. The Empire had found them, but something else had found humanity first. The golden eyes of the machine looked down at the small group of humans. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The voice that had spoken was still echoing in the chamber, bouncing off walls that had been silent for 12,000 years. Wu Deho found his voice first. "What are you?" The machine did not move, but the light in its eyes grew brighter. "I am called the Sentinel. I was built by those who came before, the ones your ancestors called the Architects." "The Architects?" Dr. Yun Taisu stepped forward. His old legs were shaking, but his eyes were bright with excitement. There were legends, old stories about beings who visited Earth long ago, who helped humans learn to build, to farm, to survive. I thought they were just myths. "They were not myths," the Sentinel said. "The Architects were real. They traveled between stars when your kind still lived in caves. They found your world. They saw promise in your species. They planted the seeds of civilization and watched you grow." "Why?" Park Hana asked. Her hand was on her weapon. Old habits. "Why would they help us?" "Because that is what they did. The Architects did not conquer. They did not enslave. They created life. They helped it grow. They believed that one day the species they helped would join them among the stars." Sora was still standing close to the machine. Her hand had left its surface, but she could feel warmth coming from it, like standing near a fire. "What happened to them? The Architects?" For a long moment, the Sentinel did not answer. When it spoke again, there was something new in its voice, something that sounded almost like sadness. "They were betrayed. One of the species they helped turned against them. The Architects were beings of peace. They had no weapons, no armies. When the betrayers attacked, the Architects could not fight back." Deho felt cold. "The Valorans." Yes, the Valorans were once primitive creatures on a dying world. The Architects saved them, gave them technology, gave them the stars, and the Valorans repaid them with extinction. The chamber was quiet. Everyone understood now. The aliens who ruled Earth were not just conquerors. They were murderers. They had killed their own saviors. "But before the end," the Sentinel continued, "the Architects built us. The Sentinels. One for each world they had seeded with life. We were hidden, buried deep, programmed to wait." "Wait for what?" Deho asked. "For you to need us. For the day when the children of the Architects face destruction. That day has come. I am awake, and I am ready to fulfill my purpose." Above them, the sound of engines cut through the night. Valoran ships, They had found the dig site. Hana checked her equipment. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they get here. We need to move." "There is no need to run," the sentinel said. "I will handle this." The machine began to move. After 12,000 years of stillness, its joints did not creak. Its body did not shake. It moved like water, smooth and powerful and unstoppable. The ceiling of the chamber exploded outward as the sentinel rose. Rock and earth flew into the sky. The machine climbed out of its tomb and stood on the surface for the first time since before human history began. Deho and his team followed through the hole. They emerged into chaos. 3 Valoran warships hung in the air above them. Each one was the size of a city block. Their weapons were charging. Blue light gathered at their guns. Commander Oris stood on the bridge of the lead ship. He was a Valoran of high rank with medals on his chest and cruelty in his black eyes. He had ruled this region of Earth for 15 years. He had killed thousands of humans. They were insects to him. Less than insects. When he saw the sentinel rise from the ground, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. "Open fire," he ordered. "Destroy it. Destroy everything." The 3 ships fired at once. Plasma beams cut through the air. Each one carried enough power to melt a mountain. They struck the sentinel directly, and nothing happened. The machine stood there, untouched. The plasma flowed around it like water around a stone. The sentinel raised one hand toward the lead ship. Oris had time to give one more order. "Retreat! Retreat now!" But it was too late. The sentinel's hand glowed with golden light. A beam shot from its palm. It did not explode against the ship. It did not burn through the hull. The ship simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. The next moment it was gone. No fire, no debris, nothing. The ship had been unmade, erased from reality itself. The other 2 ships turned and ran. Their engines screamed as they fled into the clouds. The sentinel watched them go. It did not chase them. It did not need to. Deho stood in the rain and looked up at the ancient machine. His whole life he had fought the Valorans. His whole life he had watched humanity lose. Every battle, every war, every hope, until now. "Can you really help us?" he asked. "Can you really free Earth?" The sentinel turned its golden gaze down to the small human. "I was built to protect the children of the architects. I was built to end any threat against them." The machine's voice grew harder. "The Valorans have enslaved my maker's children for 37 years. They have killed millions. They have taken everything from you." The sentinel took a step forward. The ground shook. "I am going to take it back." On Valoran ships across the solar system, sensors screamed warnings. In military bases on 3 planets, commanders watched their screens with growing terror. On the Valoran throne world, far across the galaxy, Emperor Moro received a message that made his silver face go pale. The humans had found something. Something old. Something powerful. Something that even an empire of 800 worlds could not stop. The war for Earth's freedom had begun. The news spread like fire across Earth. In hidden camps and underground tunnels, in slave quarters and mining pits, humans heard the impossible story. A machine from the ancient past had awakened. It had destroyed a Valoran warship with a single blow. It was fighting for humanity. For the first time in 37 years, people began to hope. Wu Deho became the voice of the resistance. He traveled with the Sentinel, broadcasting messages to every human settlement on Earth. His words were simple. "Rise up. The chains are breaking. Fight back. We are not alone anymore." And humans listened. On Mars Colony 7, a man named Baek Jinho led the first major uprising. He was a chief engineer who had spent 20 years building machines for the Valorans. He knew every system in the colony. He knew every weakness. When the signal came from Earth, Jinho gathered his people in secret. Workers, miners, technicians, people who had been beaten and starved and treated like animals. He looked at their tired faces and saw something new in their eyes. Anger. Real anger. The kind that had been buried for decades. "The orbital defense platforms," Jinho said, pointing at a map. "If we take them, the Valorans cannot bring ships to support the ground forces. We cut them off. We trap them here with us." "There are only 300 of us," someone said. "They have weapons, armor, training." Jinho smiled. It was not a nice smile. "They have been comfortable for too long. They think we are broken. They think we cannot fight. Let us show them how wrong they are." The attack happened at midnight. It was brutal and fast and bloody. Jinho's people used tools as weapons. They used their knowledge of the colony's systems to turn the environment against their masters. They cut power to Valoran quarters. They vented atmosphere from guard stations. They fought with the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. By morning, Mars Colony 7 was free. Similar uprisings happened across the solar system. On Europa Station, a scientist named Dr. Choi Mirai led a team that captured the main communications array. They jammed all Valoran transmissions. They broadcast messages of hope to every colony. They told the galaxy that humanity was fighting back, but it was the Sentinel that broke the back of the occupation. The ancient machine moved through space like nothing the Valorans had ever seen. It did not need ships. It did not need fuel. It simply appeared wherever it wanted to be, traveling faster than light itself. The Valoran occupation fleet tried to stop it. They sent 50 ships to surround Earth. The Sentinel destroyed them all in less than an hour. They sent 100 more from the Jupiter stations. The Sentinel went through them like a knife through paper. Valoran admirals began to refuse orders. Some ships fled to neutral space. Some crews mutinied and surrendered to the humans they had once enslaved. The mighty empire was falling apart. On the throne world of Valora Prime, Emperor Moro called an emergency meeting of his war council. The silver-skinned rulers of 800 systems sat in a great hall beneath a red sky. Fear hung in the air like smoke. "This cannot continue," Moro said. His voice was cold, but his hands were shaking. "We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We destroyed the architects. We crushed every species that challenged us. We will not fall to humans." Commander Oris stepped forward. He had escaped the first battle with the Sentinel. He had run while his ship was erased from existence. The shame burned in him like poison. "There is one option," Oris said. "The Extinction Protocol." The council went silent. The Extinction Protocol was the Empire's final weapon. 12 missiles carrying antimatter warheads, each one powerful enough to crack a planet in half. They had never been used. They were meant only for the worst situations. "You want to destroy Earth?" one council member asked. "I want to destroy the machine," Oris replied. "It seems to be connected to that world somehow. If we remove the world, perhaps we remove the machine. And the humans? They are nothing. We have billions of slaves on other worlds. Losing Earth changes nothing." Emperor Moro sat in silence for a long moment. He had ruled for 200 years. He had watched his empire grow strong. He had believed nothing could threaten it. He had been wrong. "Do it," he said. "Launch the missiles. Burn Earth to ash." The order went out. On the edge of the solar system, hidden in the darkness between planets, 12 missiles activated. Their engines came to life. They turned toward the small blue world that had given the Empire so much trouble. They began to move. On Earth, the Sentinel stopped. It was standing in the ruins of what had once been Paris, having just destroyed the last Valoran base in Europe. Wu Deho stood beside it, watching Valoran soldiers surrender by the thousands. "Something is wrong," the Sentinel said. "What is it?" "Weapons. 12 of them. Coming from the outer system, they are powerful enough to destroy your world. Daiho felt his blood go cold. Can you stop them? The sentinel did not answer immediately. Its golden eyes looked toward the stars. When it spoke again, its voice was different, harder, angrier. Yes, I can stop them. But stopping them is not enough. The Valorans will try again. They will keep trying until your world is ash. Unless I end this. Unless I end them. What do you mean? The sentinel turned its ancient gaze to Daiho. It is time you learned the full truth, Captain Wu Daiho. It is time you understood why I was really built. Golden light surrounded them both. The world disappeared. And Daiho found himself standing in the past, watching history unfold before his eyes. Daiho stood in a place that was not real. The sentinel had put a vision directly into his mind. He could see everything, feel everything, smell the air of a world that had died 12,000 years ago. He was standing on a planet of crystal and light. Towers rose into a purple sky. Gardens floated in the air. Music came from everywhere and nowhere. It was the most beautiful place Daiho had ever seen. And walking through this paradise were the architects. They were beings of light and thought, not solid like humans, not cold like machines. They glowed with colors that Daiho did not have names for. They moved with grace and purpose. When they spoke, their voices were like singing. They created life across 1,000 worlds, the sentinel's voice said in Daiho's mind. They did not believe in war. They did not believe in conquest. They believed that the universe was meant to be shared, that all species could live together in peace. The vision changed. Daiho saw the architects finding Earth. It was young then. Primitive humans lived in caves and feared the dark. The architects watched them with what Daiho could only call love. They saw potential in your ancestors. They helped them, taught them, gave them the knowledge to survive and grow. Then they left, planning to return when humanity was ready to join the stars. The vision changed again. Now Daiho saw a different world, gray and dying. On its surface, creatures with silver skin fought each other for scraps of food and dirty water. The Valorans. But they were not rulers here. They were victims. Their world was killing them. The architects found them too, saved them, gave them technology to heal their planet, gave them ships to spread to other worlds. The Valorans promised to follow the architects' ways, to help others as they had been helped. The vision grew dark. Daiho watched the Valorans grow powerful. He watched them build weapons when the architects had none. He watched them look at the peaceful beings who had saved them and see not benefactors, but prey. They attacked without warning. The architects could not understand it, could not believe that any species would harm those who had shown them only kindness. Daiho watched the architects die. He watched them fall by the millions. Their crystal cities burned. Their floating gardens crashed to the ground. The Valorans killed them all, every single one. He felt tears on his face. He had never cried for strangers before. But these were not strangers. These were the beings who had given his ancestors the chance to become human. Before the end, the architects built the sentinels, the voice continued. One for each world they had seeded. We were their final gift, their last act of love for the children they would never see grow. The vision showed hundreds of machines like the Sentinel. Each one was being placed on a different planet, hidden, buried, waiting. The Valorans hunted us for millennia. They feared what would happen if the children of the architects found us. They destroyed sentinels on world after world. They erased all memory of the architects from history. They wanted to rule forever, unchallenged. The vision faded. Daiho found himself back on Earth. The sentinel stood before him, its golden eyes glowing. I am the last sentinel. The others are gone, but I am enough. Deho wiped his face. The missiles! They are still coming. Yes, 12 weapons of extinction, each one powerful enough to destroy your world. Can you stop them? The sentinel was quiet for a moment. When it answered, there was something new in its voice, something cold and terrible and final. I will not stop them. I will send them home. The machine raised its hands toward the sky. Deho felt power gather around them, power older than human civilization, power built by beings who had created life itself. Far away, at the edge of the solar system, the 12 missiles suddenly changed course. Their guidance systems went dark. New commands appeared in their simple computer minds. They turned away from Earth. They pointed toward a distant star, and they began to accelerate. On Valora Prime, the early warning systems detected the missiles too late. They were traveling faster than anything the Empire had ever built. They crossed the gulf between stars in minutes. Emperor Moro was in his throne room when the alarms began. He looked at the screens. He saw 12 points of light approaching his world, his weapons, his missiles, coming home. No, he whispered. This is not possible. But it was possible, and it was happening. The missiles struck Valora Prime at the same moment. 12 antimatter warheads designed to crack planets in half hit the throne world of the Empire. The explosion was visible from 1,000 light years away. When it was over, there was nothing left. No cities, no people, no empire, just dust spreading slowly through space. On Earth, Deho watched the stars. He felt nothing, no joy, no sadness. The beings who had enslaved his people for 37 years were gone. Their homeworld was destroyed. Their emperor was dead. It should have felt like victory, but all he felt was tired. Is it over? He asked. The sentinel shook its head. Not yet. The Empire had 800 worlds. Millions of Valorans still live across the galaxy. They will regroup. They will rebuild. They will come for revenge. Then we fight them, however long it takes. No, the sentinel said. You will not have to fight. The architects left me with one final command, a final solution. Something they created in their last days, when they knew they were going to die. What is it? A prison. A dimension outside normal space. A place where the Valorans can never escape from. A place where they can never hurt anyone again. The sentinel turned its eyes toward the stars, toward the galaxy beyond, toward every world where Valorans still lived. I am going to send them there, all of them, every last one. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. Can you do that? Can you really make an entire species just disappear? The architects built me for exactly this purpose. They hoped I would never have to use it. They hoped the Valorans would change, would learn to be better. But some things cannot be forgiven. Some debts must be paid. The sentinel began to glow. Light gathered around it. The air hummed with power. Watch, child of Earth. Watch and see what happens to those who betray the architects. A signal went out, a frequency that traveled across the galaxy in an instant. A call that only Valoran ears could hear. And across 800 worlds, the Valorans stopped what they were doing. They listened. And they began to walk. Across the galaxy, something strange was happening. On 800 worlds, in millions of cities, Valorans stopped whatever they were doing. They put down their weapons. They left their meals half-eaten. They walked away from conversations in the middle of sentences. They began to walk toward ships. On the colony world of Nexar 7, a Valoran general was giving orders to his troops when his voice simply stopped. He turned and walked out of the command center. His soldiers tried to stop him. He did not respond. He did not even seem to see them. On the trading hub of Krell Station, thousands of Valoran merchants left their shops at the same moment. They walked to the docking bays. They climbed into whatever ships they could find. They flew away without looking back. On 100 slave worlds, human prisoners watched their masters leave. The guards dropped their rifles. The overseers abandoned their posts. One by one, every Valoran walked away from everything they had built. They were being called home. Not to Valora Prime, which was now nothing but ash. To somewhere else. Somewhere beyond the stars. Park Hana stood beside Deho on Earth and watched the sky. Valoran ships were rising from bases all over the planet. Not to fight, not to flee, just rising and flying toward something that no human could see. "What is happening to them?" she asked. The sentinel answered. "They are answering a call, a frequency built into their very bodies, a failsafe the architects created when they first uplifted the Valoran species. They hoped it would never be needed. They were wrong." "Where are they going?" "To a place the architects prepared long ago, a pocket dimension, a prison outside normal space and time. The Valorans will live there forever. They will have air to breathe and food to eat. But they will never leave. They will never threaten anyone again." Dr. Kim Sora watched a Valoran shuttle pass overhead. Inside, she could see silver faces pressed against the windows. They looked confused, lost, like sleepwalkers who could not wake up. "Is this right?" she asked quietly. "To trap an entire species? Even them?" The sentinel turned its ancient eyes to her. The architects asked themselves the same question. They debated for years. They believed all life was sacred. They did not want to destroy the Valorans. They could not bring themselves to kill even those who had murdered them. The machine paused. But they also could not let the Valorans harm their children. So they chose a middle path. Not death, not freedom. Something between. A prison built with love and sorrow. A cage made by beings who still hoped their betrayers might one day find redemption. 1 week passed. Then 2. All across the galaxy, the last Valorans boarded their ships and flew toward the rift in space that the Sentinel had opened. They flew in silence. They flew without stopping, and one by one they disappeared into the light. When the last ship was gone, the rift closed. The signal stopped. The Valoran Empire, which had ruled 800 systems for 10,000 years, simply ceased to exist. Their cities stood empty. Their ships drifted without crews. Their slaves walked free for the first time in generations. On Earth, humans emerged from their hiding places. They looked up at a sky that no longer held their masters. They breathed air that was finally their own. Some of them laughed. Some of them cried. Some just stood in silence, unable to believe it was real. Daiho found the Sentinel standing in the place where it had first awakened. The hole in the ground was still there. The chamber below still waited. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you rebuild. Now you grow. Now you take your place among the stars, as the architects always intended." "And you?" The Sentinel began to dim. Its golden eyes grew softer. "My purpose is complete. The architects built me to protect their children. I have done this. Now I will return to sleep. Will we ever see you again? If you need me, I will wake. But I do not think you will need me. The architects believed in you. They gave everything so that you might have this chance. Do not waste it." The machine stepped down into the hole, down into the chamber that had held it for 12,000 years. The earth began to close above it. "Remember them," the Sentinel said as it sank into darkness. "Remember the architects. Remember that you were loved before your history began. Remember that you are meant for great things." The last of the golden light faded. The ground sealed itself. And the Sentinel was gone. 50 years later, the United Human Federation had become the largest alliance in the known galaxy. 47 species had joined, all of them former slaves of the Valoran Empire. Together they were building something new, something the architects had dreamed of long ago, a community of worlds working together, sharing their knowledge and their hopes. Admiral Park Hana was an old woman now. Her hair was gray and her scars had faded to thin white lines, but her eyes were still sharp. She still remembered everything. Every year on the anniversary of the liberation, she brought her grandchildren to the Hall of Remembrance in New Seoul, a great building filled with names. Every human who had died under Velaran rule was listed there. Millions of names covering walls that stretched for kilometers. And in the center of the hall stood a statue of the Sentinel, 40 meters tall, made of black stone that seemed to drink in light. "Who was he?" her youngest granddaughter asked, looking up at the statue. Hana smiled. "Not he, it. And it was a gift, from beings who lived long ago, beings who created life across the stars, beings who loved us before we even existed. Where is it now? Sleeping, under the earth, waiting for us to need it again. Will we ever need it?" Hana looked at the statue. She thought about Daiho, who had died 10 years ago, peacefully, in his own bed, on a free earth. She thought about Taisu and Sora, who had spent their lives teaching others about the architects. She thought about Jinho and Mireille, who had led the rebuilding of 100 worlds. She thought about all the species who now looked to humanity for guidance, who saw in humans the same thing the architects had seen so long ago: potential, hope, a future worth building. "No," she said finally. "I do not think we will. The architects gave us everything we need. We just have to be brave enough to use it." Outside the Hall of Remembrance, the sun was setting over a city that had once been ruins. Children played in streets where Velaran soldiers had once marched. Families sat down to dinner without fear. Ships rose into a sky that belonged to no one but those who lived beneath it. Beneath the earth, in a chamber of ancient stone, the Sentinel waited in silence. Its golden eyes were dark, its body was still, but somewhere deep inside its ancient mind, it was watching, listening, waiting. Proud of what its children had become, and ready, always ready to wake again if they ever needed help. But they never did. The end.